Stevie Nicks is singing to you. It's super, super feminine and sexy, and that's something that I consider to be extremely beautiful. It represents everything that I like about the voice of a woman singing. So, welcome back to the channel. For the first time, we're going to be analyzing Fleetwood Mac. I know it took a good while, but we're finally going to be reacting and listening to one of their songs. A band that every single one of us have heard at least once in our lifetime. And the track in question is my personal favorite by them. This is of course coming from Rumors, and the track in question is of course Dreams. Great track, fantastic song. And personally speaking, I find this song to be one of the most feminine and sexier songs ever written in history, because the sound of her vocals in this one, damn. Yeah, damn, I find it to be super, super attractive and also beautiful, mellow. Beautiful. Let me put it that way, okay? So with that being said, let's get into it. But before we go, if this is your first time in the channel, I welcome you, because in here we analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, but using language that everybody can understand in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production, songwriting, and of course, music appreciation. With that being said, let's rock and roll. Here we go. So here we go. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Sorry for interrupting, but you know the drill. First and foremost, what a beautiful sounding mix this is, don't you think? Even though we're dealing with the remaster, I think this version is still retaining a good chunk of what makes this song sound the way it is, and preserving the emotional content of the song, don't you think? First and foremost, this is one of those songs that I would use the term cozy, kind of personal, extremely intimate when it comes to defining or describing the sound of the sound of the mix itself, the music itself. Because right now I'm not discussing the quality aspect of the music, okay? I'm describing the qualitative aspects of the sound, how this music sounds, okay? By understanding this, we can actually start to appreciate the different techniques that allows for the emotional content of the track to be expressed in a much more beautiful fashion. I think I went nerdy right off the bat, but I hope that made sense. Now, going for a little bit more of a much more colloquial terminology, I feel that the song sounds tiny, but not in a simplistic or a weak way, if that makes sense to you. It sounds personal, and that comes from the feel of it not being a bombastic anthem. It feels like something that Stevie Nicks is singing to you. It's super, super feminine and sexy, and that's something that I consider to be extremely beautiful. It represents everything that I like about the voice of a woman singing. Don't know if that makes sense to you. Maybe it's just me. I happen to be a huge fan of hers, and I actually happen to find her to be quite beautiful, particularly in the cover of this album. But whatever. Now, coming back to this, the drums is the first thing that will catch your attention. At least it catch my attention. Why? Because they sound kind of raw. Like they're not necessarily speaking that processed in the sense of compared to an album such as the Black Album by Metallica. In that, the sound of everything is larger than life. But in this album, in this song, we got a supernatural, extremely organic sound in everything, especially on the drums, that they almost feel like they were just recorded with a pair of microphones and they call it quits. But it works. It's beautiful. Also, the bass is fantastic. It sounds round, quite self-contained, but also impactful, energetic, yet groovy. It's never drawing your attention more than it should, because the star of the show is, of course, the vocals. The singing is beautiful, as I said before, but also it has this particular texture to it, a little bit of air, like that I find to be extremely beautiful in female vocals. This is a great, great mix, I gotta admit. Now, I want you to pay attention. Well, I was trying to draw your attention to the use of different layers of instruments and vocals while the track was playing. Some of them were used when I showed you the stereo analyzer that you got right now, somewhere here. In that tool, you can see that you got the line moving and reacting to the music. Each of those positions from bottom to top refers to different frequencies that are part of the frequencies that we understand as human beings, okay? And when the line moves to one side or the other, it's telling you which frequency or the frequencies that are actually affecting or being represented from that are coming out of that particular side of the stereo spectrum, okay? Or the stereo pair of headphones. And you saw that we got plenty of vocals and during that one section coming from the left. And then you got a little bit of a Rhodes-like piano, like an electric piano sound, coming from the right. And then the guitar, the acoustic guitar kicked in when the vocal arrangement comprised of her singing, and I think is Lindsay's singing as well, during the fantastic chorus, kicked in and makes the whole song feel more punchier and much more energetic, when in reality nothing changed, harmonically speaking. More on that later, because you can tell that I love this song. So let's keep rocking. But before we do that, I want you to pay attention to something. And then once I'm back, if you want to leave your comment, it would be awesome. Because I would love to see if we think differently or the same way. I want you to pay attention to the sound of the vocals and the drums. And tell me if they are inside of a big room or a small room. Okay? And how it makes you feel in accord to the sound of the music. Okay? Let's continue. Here we go. Sorry for interrupting again. I know it's what we do here in the channel, but let me show you a little bit of the analyzer. In front of us, we got the analyzer that I mentioned before. This is Decibel, and it's the tool that we use to analyze the sound of music through the use of a visual medium. And over here, we got the first layer of our analyzer, which is the frequency range analyzer. You have been looking at this for a good chunk of the show, and this stands for, or it's actually representing the loudness of each of the different frequencies that comprises the human hearing range, which goes from 20 hertz, which is the lowest we can hear, all the way down to 20,000 hertz, which is the highest we can hear as human beings. Under 20 stands for subsonic, above 20,000 stands for supersonic, okay, on audible regions. And each of the instruments, even my voice right now, is comprised of, or is actually being active in a particular set of frequencies, okay? It's important because this will allow us to see which of the instruments is louder or loudest when compared to the rest. And you can tell first and foremost that the bass or the low end, which is represented by this over here, is super big. How do I know? Because the white line here is telling us how loud all of those frequencies that are part of our human hearing range were at their highest point while the track was playing. And we got this insane bump, and you can tell that the low end is basically the driving force of the track because it's the loudest area of the entirety of the spectrum. You got here the mid-range, and you can tell that the mid-range, even though it's not as, well, it's where you will find most of the action that happens in voices, acoustic guitars, so on and so forth, those kind of elements. The thing is that even though this is a very vocal-driven track, see how little of those elements are present when compared to the bass. This is the reason why the sound of the track feels kind of cozy, kind of personal, and kind of intimate, because it's not bombastic in this area. Here's where you will find the mid highs and highs, and that's where you will find the aggression, the tension, the definition of the instruments, and also it's very much the result of the instrumentation used in the track. Electric guitars, when they are cranked up, once again, think of Metallica, they will usually will have more energy in that region over here, this section over here. And also, you will have a much more aggressive sounding vocal, also will be a little bit more on this area. If it's a male vocal, you will find the action here. Female will be usually somewhere around these two bands, in between 2,000, 3,000, but it depends on the singing voice, and also depends on how the pitch of the track. Okay, frequency-wise, frequencies are basically dependent on the pitch, or the other way around. Okay, I hope that wasn't too nerdy. I'm trying my best to keep my nerd head off because I love this song so much, and talking about it at this level is always exciting for me. Okay, now the question I ask you regarding the size of the room where the voice and the drums are playing, could you tell? Could you find it? Could you define it? Because in my head, it sounds like a space that is not super big either, adding more to the concept of it being personal. Because for whatever reason, when we listen to something that is kind of expansive and big, like inside of a cathedral, in our head, our voice, or in our head, the music sounds like something is like coming out of God Himself, okay? And we can create that illusion through the use of tools. In this case, we're talking about something called reverb. And reverb is a tool that sounds like this. Reverb. You see what I said, right? What I said. And in this case, we use it to recreate the sound of a space through the use of artificial methods under our direction, mixing engineers, of course. And you can tell that the sound of the voice, particularly the main vocals, are kind of in a kind of mid-sized room, but it's dark sounding. By dark, I mean this. Remember the whole thing with frequencies? When you have plenty of area of energy over here, is what you would call a high end. Well, it's what is known as the high end of the track. And with this, you will say that it's bright. Why? I don't know. And when you go over here, you got more action over here. This is darker sounding because it's more low end energy. I know by explaining that to you, you understood what I meant with this. Why is it like that? I have no idea. The whole thing with trying to describe the sound of music with words, it's so difficult to do that's why we use music to explain and talk about music. Does that make sense? I don't know. But again, I'm trying my best. So this track, the mix itself, for those of you who are more into the audiophile thing as well, this is a mix that I would say is warm sounding. The tone, the sound signature of this track is quite warm. Why? Because we don't have that much energy over here, and we got plenty of low end. And beautifully enough, it doesn't sound boomy or overbearingly loud, even though it's super loud. It's not Tiesto or Guns N' Roses from later eras. It's actually cozy and personal, but plenty of low, and that's why it kind of grooves, right? So, very good. Now let's take a look at the second section of our analyzer. This is the dynamic range analyzer, which, if you happen to be a fan or subscriber to this channel, you know that I happen to be a sucker for this guy. This section over here is what shows us how loud the track has been throughout time. Very important because depending on the loudness, our human brain will understand the track to be more exciting or more personal. When something's quieter, it's more personal, sexier, and a little bit introverted. And when something's louder, of course, it's more exciting, it's more daring, but also has this sense of gravitas and kind of power, okay? So the interaction between both of those elements is what we call and describe as dynamic range. Very important in music because you can imagine that throughout time or while the song is playing, depending on how the musician is reacting or putting his emotion to the music that he's playing, the song will change dramatically. And we do that on the studio while working with this kind of stuff. We control the volume with these faders, okay? So over here, we got the dynamic range analyzer, and the blue blob that you can see here is telling you how loud the track has been throughout time. You can see the introduction, mellow, not that big, loud enough, just for the voice to kick in clearly over here. How do I know? Because it ramped up in volume, and the vocals are very loud. So you see that most of the energy is contained, but here is the first verse, the first chorus, sorry, when the entirety of, or the first section of the vocal arrangement joined the track, and it became big and interesting. Then let me show you the second section. Try to keep that in mind, the loudness of the first half. Damn! We kept the sound or the volume of the first chorus kind of as the standard for these few bars, the instrumental section, just for them to drop again when the song, when they reintroduce the verse, which is quite mellow, but it's slightly higher in volume when compared to the first attempt. You can see, not by much, but this is the very cool part. The second chorus has this level of tension. There is some form of build-up that gets you prepared for the fantastic drop that is when they bring back the chorus, and it hits you that hard because of this. This ramp up that you can see here, I'm going to even zoom in slightly. Here's where you see the you know which section I'm talking about. See how little by little, in a very sneaky way, they increase the output of the track, the volume of the song, just for it to hit you hard when the entirety of the vocal arrangement is finally singing together in the second chorus. What a great piece of music this is. No wonder why Fleetwood Mac is one of those records and one of those bands that has to be part of every single one of us who take music seriously, for real. Such a great band, and yes, I'm a fan of them. Okay. Let's finish this off, and we will keep, I will give you my final input. So here we go.
They will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. Oh, thunder only happens when it's raining.
Insanely cool. Love this track. It's one of my favorite from Fleetwood Mac. Now, how could I get to this point without talking about the fantastic guitar work? It's just amazing. The tone of the electric guitar is excellent. The beautiful chord progression played by Lindsay on the guitar, on the acoustic guitar, is fantastic. It's super cool. It's very, very much the core of the song. And you see that this song is kind of like a fight between the voice and the guitar to keep the to draw the attention of the audience, don't you think? In a very musical way. It's not that they are clashing; they are actually working in tandem. But you don't know which one is your favorite, at least when it comes to picking the most prominent element of this particular piece of music, because the guitar is always doing something very cool, interesting, and in great taste, while the vocals are simply gorgeous. Cool, right? Also, the effects on the guitar, the tone is just magnificent on the electric guitar. Is super cool. The sound of the different moments in which there is that little section in which he plays a lead tone, like that section is just beautiful, so cool. It comes out of nowhere, adding this beautiful bridge between the two different main bodies of music that it comprises the track, which is the first half, which is the introduction, chorus, verse and chorus, and what we just listened to at the end. The track itself is kind of simple from a songwriting perspective, but it's so layered, so beautifully crafted. The interaction between the elements is done to perfection. It's a minimalistic track because if you truly think about it, there are not that many things going on at the same time, but everything that shows it makes itself super present by the fact that it's minimalistic. So this is a good example of, I know it's not necessarily correct, but less is more. But because in here we got something that is capitalizing on not going overboard with the composition, if I put it in a much better way. So there you have it. What do you think about this track? As you can see, I happen to be a sucker for this freaking song. So good. And also, Fleetwood Mac is a fantastic band. Plenty of fantastic records and plenty of great songs that we can analyze together. So please let me know what or which should be the next song I should be analyzing in this way by Fleetwood Mac in this channel. And of course, if you like to support this channel, please subscribe if you happen to enjoy what you just saw, and click the notification bell because that's the only way for YouTube to know that you like this, believe me, for real. And also, if you just simply go there and click on the like button underneath, that will help the channel. You know how much, for real. So, with that being said, thank you for watching, thank you for joining, and as every single time that I meet you, I gotta remind you that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about, and remember that I will see you when I see you.